Now, we just gotta stop listening back to our mixes at high volume, and today I'm going to explain why. Have you ever listened back to your mixes and felt that they were boring, uninspiring, and lacked the proper punch? Welcome, I'm Mattias, a composer and creative producer from Sweden. Today I'll show you how you can take a boring mix and bring out the sound qualities and make it sound full and exciting. Let's take the tour. Right, so why is it so important to listen back to your mix at a low volume? The main reason is that you will have a much better perception to set up the initial balance and levels, so you can hear which of the sounds are too high or too low in the mix. It's much easier to hear that if you're listening back to a low volume. So today we're going to look at a quite extreme example here. It's one of my more recent tracks called Ophéliux, and if you want to listen to the full track, it's available on my Bandcamp. There's links in the description. But basically, this track began as a little project on the OP1 field, and then I brought it into the DAW to make the mix properly, because it's quite hard to mix on the OP1 field. So first out, we'll listen to the raw mix coming from the OP1 field, and then we will listen to the properly polished mix from the DAW Bitwig Studio. So you can hear quite a lot changed from the initial sketch coming from the OP1 field compared to the polished mix from the DAW. So I know this is a quite extreme example, but when listening back to this initial sketch coming from the OP1 field, and we drag down the volume here so we can better hear the balance of the mix. Right, so there's a few things we can improve on this mix. First out, we can hear that the drum sounds are basically all over the place. They are way too loud, especially some of those sidestick sounds. And we can also hear the bass sounds a little bit boring and uninspiring, and maybe that's because it's a kind of drone bass. Maybe we can improve that by making some kind of staccato bass instead. And we can also hear this like overall unbalance in the mix that we need to improve. We need to make the frequency spectrum more even and more full sounding. And one way we can do that is to introduce saturation on some of the lead sounds or the pads to give the sounds more harmonics and make the sound more like a warm and analog or full. But basically at this stage I thought about just replacing a lot of the sounds. Maybe recreate a nice kick, obviously replace that side stick, so we can have a much like smoother sounds and more full sounds. And also maybe replace the pads and lead sounds and maybe do some layering. So if we look at the tracks in the project file here and begin with the drums, we can look at the replaced kick. It's actually a little kick that I created just with a basic serum patch, just the analog B design, at -3 octaves and with this XF kick attack transient sound. So if we solo the kick, it sounds like this. So I feel that that's a much nicer kick than the original kick from the project. Then the side stick is also replaced with another sample. Compared to the original side stick. You can hear that it's a little lower in pitch and it also has some saturation on it, and I reduced a little bit of the highs too on it. We can look at some of the settings here. This is the compression. And a little bit of saturation from the BLES plugin. So we can listen to the sidestick without the saturation. So it brings up more harmonics and make it sound more full and a little bit more upfront, but not as upfront as the original soundstick, which just sucked. And I'm also using the slice EQ from Kilohertz to bring out the sound a little bit more in the mix. So with those plugins in place, the sidestick sounds more even with the other drum sounds and other sounds in the mix. And the hi-hat was also replaced with a little loop. And with the Bitwig modulators you can do really fun stuff like modulating the volume in this case. Of course you can go in and edit and automate the volume changes to get this kind of rhythm going, but I was doing this with an LFO instead. It's like a quick shortcut. And if you're working in another DAW and want to do similar things, you can actually look at the Kilohertz Snap Heap plugins, because with those you can also add modulators and do this kind of fun custom effects. And without this modulator tool device, you can hear that all sounds are like equal volume. And with the modulator you get a little bit more groove. Right, so next up is the bass. On the original track we had this kind of droning, boring bass. Which was replaced with a bass from Trillion. It says Omnisphere here, but it's the Trillion bass, the Finger Studio Bass Warm. With a little bit of compression and gain adjustment. There's some really nice basses in the Trillion suite of basses. Now the only original track that I actually kept from the original arrangement from the Op1 field is this melody track. Which I spiced up with a little bit of compression and a boost in the high end here to make it more sizzly and poke out a little bit more in the mix. And I also added the free Valhalla Supermassive. Again, excellent delay/reverb plugin. It should be in everyone's toolbox. We also have an additional chord sound here in the mix. Just some basic chords with a native synth of Bitwig called the Polysynth, but basically you can create this with any like a Juno kind of emulating synth. With a little bit of chorus, and I get rid of a little bit of low mid-range here at 300 Hz. And a nice smooth delay tape effect from Arturia. And this is also a string sound, a stab string sound, which was created on the Op1 field string machine. But I processed it here in Bitwig with some low cut and high cut, and a little bit of compression, and a tool device to increase the width of the stereo spread. And some delay. Because as you can hear, without this EQ to tune in the sound and make it focused on one area, it's just all over the place and quite harsh in the mix. So we need that EQ. And some extra shakers. And in the background I also added a little bit of ambient sound. It's a really nice tip here to add some kind of ambient sounds to the background, especially if you have a very lush track with a minimal instrumentation. Just add some kind of like nature sounds or like water streams or in this case a calm beach, which I recorded a few years back at my parents' place at the sea. Now the track also has a breakdown section, and the breakdown section of the original OP1 field version sounded like this. And on the rework I added a little bit of more leads and Rhodes and like layered the lead sounds, and it sounds like this. So you can hear it's super important to use great sounding samples and also layer your melodies if you want them to sound more full, and you can also experiment with adding layers as the song goes by, so to speak, which I was doing in this case, adding some layers after a few seconds. So this is a Rhodes piano from Omnisphere, the Dream of Mystic Rhodes, with a little bit of compression and delay. This lead is also from Omnisphere, the Dreamstick Piano 1. Just some fills to fill out the space when the other melody leaves. But one of the tracks that I actually kept from the OP1 field was this pad. Because I really love that kind of damped Rhodes piano sound that's included on the OP1 field. And we have the Trillium bass again, same patch as we were using on the verse. And we have a second Rhodes piano here. Which is lower in pitch and has this kind of wavy tremolo. Right, so let's summarize. Lower the volume so you can hear the balance of your mix and hear which of the instruments are poking out or are too loud or too low in volume. And you can make the proper balancing decisions quite easily. I mean, I forget this all the time to lower the volume because we want to hear our mixes at a loud volume because it makes us feel good and it just sounds more powerful. But for mixing purposes, lower the volume and you will hear how to balance properly. Right, if you enjoyed these videos, please subscribe, hit the like and write some nice feedback or any questions or comments in the comment section. So if you want more music production tricks, music theory tips and mixing techniques, make sure to subscribe to morningdewmedia.com. Right, now you can continue and watch my next video. Hope to see you in the next episode. Bye.